You know, we've all had that experience where we're having a conversation and we're like, man, this person is so wrong. Like they just don't get it. And then the next day you have a conversation with yourself and you realize you were wrong. And it is just those internal arguments that sometimes are the hardest to win. This is your host. This is the show. We want to help you be the best student, the best professional, and the best entrepreneur you can be. So if you like these videos, please make sure to subscribe. And with that said, let's begin. So yeah, we've all had that experience where we're talking to someone and we're like, I cannot believe how wrong this person is. Like, why don't they just see things my way? Why can't they understand what I'm trying to say? It's easy for us to think that other people are the problem. They don't understand us. They don't get our point of view. But I would challenge you to ask yourself this question more often. When you're in those conversations, in fact, I want you to apply this after you finish watching this video. I want you to go back and listen to every argument you've had in the past week, where you thought the other person was wrong. I want you to play back your part in that conversation and ask yourself this simple question. Was I wrong? Because I guarantee you, like most of us, you will find that you were wrong far more often than you care to admit. And here's the hard truth about being wrong that nobody really tells you. Being wrong doesn't make you a bad person. Now, I think something that's important for us to recognize is that everyone thinks they're right, okay? If you're sitting there, you're like, no, I'm always right. You probably aren't watching this video. But the reality is that when we feel strongly about something, we think we're right. We think we're right about how things should be done. We think we're right about how things should have gone. We think we're right about our opinions, our beliefs, our values. We think we're right, but the reality is we're all wrong sometimes. Like that's just the reality of human existence. We don't have all the information all the time. We can't process all the information perfectly. We have biases. We have blind spots. We have preconceived notions and beliefs that color our perception of reality. And the one thing I can promise you is that if you take this advice and you start applying it to your life, you start asking yourself this question, was I wrong? More often, you will find that you are wrong far more often than you think. But here's the even harder truth. It's not only okay to be wrong, it's actually healthy to be wrong. And here's what I mean by that. See, we as human beings, we naturally resist being wrong, like we naturally want to be right. And the reason we want to be right is because if we're wrong, it means that we could be right. There's this possibility that we haven't seen or that we haven't considered. And so we start digging in and we start arguing and we start trying to prove ourselves right. But the reality is that if we could be wrong, we should be open to that possibility. And when we are open to the possibility that we could be wrong, it opens up a whole new world of understanding and empathy and compassion and connection. Think about it. The next time you in an argument and you trying to convince the other person that they wrong and you trying to convince them to see your point of view, what happens? When they finally agree with you, you're like, yes, I told you so. I was right. And then you move on. The conversation is over. But think about what would happen if instead of being right, you genuinely understood their point of view. You understood why they think the way they do, where they're coming from, what experiences have led them to this place. What if you actually cared about their perspective? See, when you do that, when you ask yourself, was I wrong? You start to understand their perspective. You start to see things from their point of view. And this is something that leads to deeper, more meaningful conversations, deeper relationships, and a greater sense of fulfillment and happiness. Now, I know this might sound like a touchy-feely, woo-woo concept, but the reality is this is backed by science. In fact, I did a study on this. Researchers at the University of Chicago, they did this experiment where they took to groups of people. One group, they told them to try to change each other's mind, okay? The other group, they said, listen, you need to convince the other person that they're wrong, okay? And then they had them engage in a debate about a controversial topic. And what they found was that the people who were trying to change each other's minds ended up having much more meaningful conversations. They developed deeper relationships. And not only that, but they actually enjoyed the conversation more. And what's interesting is that the people who were trying to change each other's minds, they didn't even think they were doing anything differently. But the researchers could tell because they had observers watching these debates that these people were asking better questions. They were listening more. They were speaking less. And ultimately, they were having more meaningful conversations. In fact, this study has been replicated numerous times with the same results. So what does this tell us? It tells us that we don't need to be right. In fact, It's better if we're wrong, because when we are wrong, it gives us an opportunity to learn, to grow, to connect with others. Now, I know this is easier said than done. We naturally want to be right. But the next time you're in an argument, the next time you're having a conversation where you think the other person is wrong, I want you to ask yourself, am I wrong? Because when you do that, I can promise you it will lead to better conversations, better relationships, and a better life. What's interesting though, is that being wrong is not only okay, it's actually good for us. It's good for us intellectually, emotionally, and spiritually. Intellectually, when we're wrong, it forces us to confront our own biases and our own ignorance. And that's not a comfortable place to be. But it's a necessary place to be if we want to grow intellectually. Emotionally, when we're wrong, it forces us to develop empathy and compassion for others. And that's not always easy, especially if we're passionate about something. But if we can do it, it will lead to deeper, more meaningful relationships. And spiritually, when we're wrong, it humbles us. It reminds us that we're not perfect and that we don't have all the answers. And that is actually a good thing because it means that we reopen to learning and growing and evolving. So the next time you're in an argument, you think you're right, I want you to ask yourself, am I wrong? Because when you do that, it will lead to better conversations, better relationships, and a better life. I know that this isn't easy. Like I said, we naturally want to be right. But if you can practice this, if you can train yourself to be open to the idea that you could be wrong, I promise you, it will lead to better conversations. Okay, here's what I need from you. I need you to share this video with someone who needs to hear this message. There's someone in your life who's in a lot of arguments. Maybe it's your friend, your family member, your significant other. Share this video with them. Share it on social media. Just put it in a text message. Just send it to them. Make sure they watch this video. Also, if you're not subscribed, please make sure to hit that subscribe button. We want to help you be the best student, the best professional, the best entrepreneur you can be. So please make sure to subscribe. With that said, thank you for watching. Thank you for giving me a portion of your valuable time. I hope you have an amazing day.